Yeah, yeah. I'll plug a
All right.
I'll plug there's still sound in the yeah. Anyway,
am I coming through your headphones or coming through the system too?
you're coming through the computer, and the speakers are down on the computer. So
okay, so you can't really hear. You can't really. It's not really bleeding that much.
No, if it is, it's gonna be right there with the yeah. It doesn't bleed.
All right.
I got the FM7. It doesn't hear. It can't hear that good. So I hear.
All right,
I hear
let's do it. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, I'm recording over here.
All right, okay, we're recording.
All right. Welcome to the Show on the Road podcast. Will you tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do?
My name is Keb Mo. I am just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and I play music for a living.
Amen, brother.
Amen. It's a good thing.
Now, you grew up near me in Compton here in LA.
Oh, you're in LA?
Yeah.
Where are you at?
West Side, like West LA, Santa Monica.
Yeah, that's where we were living when we moved to Nashville. We're over in West LA.
Oh, nice. Whereabouts?
Now.
Whereabouts were you over here?
Over right near National and Overland, right by the Trader, right around the corner from the Trader Joe's.
Very handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, as convenient as it is to have like a Trader Joe's and like a really awesome set of stores that you go to and you know what you're going to get, I couldn't help but think about your song More for Your Money, which I just discovered from the Blues Americana record.
Well, you'll be the first one to get that song.
Well, the thing that always strikes me about your music, obviously people know you coming up through the blues scene. You've been doing it for, close to 50 years. But you're sort of weaving these pretty intense social commentaries into your music that seems kind of cheerful and upbeat. And they are, except that what I love about that song is that you're talking about, I'm eating cookies and ice cream, but we can't get anybody to have a decent job. And all the places that I grew up going to have been decimated by these large chain stores. And how about some more cookies and ice cream?
Bernie Madoff with the rich folks' money.
Hey, how many blues artists are writing about Bernie Madoff right now?
That's rich folks blues. Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, you pick it up. I mean, I do that a lot. I kind of I don't harp on things. Like there's one song, the song Oklahoma. Have you heard that song?
The title track of the record?
Yeah. That one, on the bridge, I go like, and over on Greenwood, Archer and Pine, there's an elevated state of mind. So keep on reaching for the sky, because when they go low, we go high. That's a reference to the Black Wall Street massacre of 1920.
Right.
But I just mentioned the streets and the fact that there was great things going on there, but I don't say anything about the massacre. You have to go figure out. If you Google Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, you find it.
Yeah, this last year was the 20th anniversary. Sorry, this year was the 100th anniversary of that massacre in Tulsa, and a lot of people like myself literally grew up not knowing what it was until we saw it on HBO's Watchmen. Which is crazy.
Yeah, nobody knew. They buried it in history, and it happened like a couple times, not in Oklahoma, but I think it happened in St. Louis and somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that sort of thing happened. Yeah.
Well, and obviously, LA had its own riots and its own social upheaval. Were you around here during the Rodney King situation?
Oh yeah, yes, I was.
What was that like?
It was really it was before. I'm going to count my years back. It was before OJ.
Right. A couple
You know,
years before.
um, so Rodney King's kind of set the stage for OJ.
Uh-huh.
Rodney King came along, and then this is like business as usual in LA. But they finally caught it on tape.
Right.
We went to Compton, people like LA, South Central, been knowing this stuff for years, you know, but they finally caught it on tape, you know, and they went to court, and everyone's going like, oh yeah, now they finally they got it on tape. Now these guys are going to pay now, and they all not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, and it's like that's the old thing, like, well, who are you going to believe, me or your eyes?
Right.
So all hell broke loose. And so yeah, so then that was kind of like, but once again, I'm a guy that's not going to harp on all this stuff.
Right.
These are isolated incidents that that media, the public gets a hold of, and they have a field day with. It sells lots of advertisement, and it's a
Right.
big thing. And then things really don't change all that much. So now along comes OJ,
Right.
A man, that was which is the so that was like Rodney King was that was like everybody knew about that, but the whole world got to see it finally, and the riots and all that stuff. But Oklahoma was a completely different upheaval, you know.
Right.
That was not an upheaval of something happened. That was like it wasn't kind of like Rodney King, but it was a big Rodney King, you know. But it was a jealousy. It was an upheaval of jealousy by the other side of town towards the black part of Oklahoma, which was fueled by segregation.
Right.
The fact of the matter that the reason that they were so rich on the Black Wall Street side was not that they were, had any special privileges, is that they couldn't shop on the other side of town. They weren't allowed over there. So they spend all their money in their own neighborhood. And what's happened when you spend all your money in your own neighborhood is that the neighborhood gets wealthy.
Right.
Like that big box store that came in and, took out all the, the little mom and pop stores, that doesn't really have a color. That's just economics.
Well, the new record that you're putting out is remarkably, relentlessly upbeat. Which I think like we kind of need right now. That title track, Good to Be, really brings you back to your neighborhood and sort of brings you back as an elder statesman looking at where you came from, the neighborhood that made you strong. And that sort of everyone's moved away, but it's sort of still the same in its heart, and I think you gain strength from that. Did that song come from coming back to LA and seeing where you grew up?
Yeah, it came out of that. I was over at the house, and it was last year during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. And actually it was one of those co-writes that was introduced to me by my publisher. He connected me with a guy named Magic Money Mark. That was his name,
Mm-hmm.
Money Mark, and he was from the Beastie Boys.
Okay.
And so we started talking. He's up in Echo Park, and like that vibe. He's from that neighborhood. So we just started talking about comparing notes about our neighborhoods and all that kind of stuff. Like, where'd you grow up?
North side of Chicago.
North side of Chicago. So like, there's a certain thing in your neighborhood. Chicago is a real neighborhood city.
Right.
And your neighborhood is like, that's where that's where you develop. That's where your friendship, your strong alliances and friendships and how you view the world is a lot about that. So we started talking about that, and he started talking about Eagle Rock, and we started talking about Compton. I think he's from Gardena. He might be from Gardena as well. Gardena is another one of those towns, just right next door to Compton. It's just west of Compton. Cartagena. And so, and now, when I grew up, when I moved to Compton, I was 7 years old, and maybe it was six or seven, probably seven, and it was still mixed. It was still a mixed community of white and black, you know,
Right.
and and by the time I was, came of age in high school, it was pretty much all, all black, Latino, and Asian, you know.
Hmm.
So, so in that area. So like those, and now it's 70% Latino, you know, and the Latinos in the neighborhood now, they're just like the folks that we were. They're us in the 60s,
Yeah.
you know, you know, and it's great because I'm the guy on the block that's probably been there longer than anybody. There's one, maybe two people that's been on the block longer than me, my family, you know. So I'm one of the block elder statesmen that's been there a long time, you know, my family, and it's cool. It's just so cool, you know, to be there in that working class, working man environment, you know, people getting up, going to work in the morning and being neighbors and having to watch out which neighborhood you kind of go to, which street you go down.
Right.
I still know the neighborhoods now. Now you can go down the street and get your ass kicked, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, that's the thing about growing up in, a city like Chicago. You don't know where these like war zones are. You see it on TV, you read about it in the paper that Chicago always has the most shootings and the most gun deaths, gang violence. Same thing with LA. But like in our little bubbles on the west side, you're like, oh yeah, that's somewhere over there, right?
Yeah.
And really it's like a 15-minute drive,
Like
and people are
Compton.
living there for generations and
And
experiencing this violence and this upheaval.
in Compton, it's a 2-minute walk.
Yeah.
So like, but it's still that same thing. You know where to go to keep generally safe, you know?
And your parents are part of the, southern migration of African Americans,
Western
from the
migration.
South to
Yes,
the West.
that's what the whole thing was. So in a sense, I grew up in a migrated Southern culture that was on the West Coast.
What did your dad do when you were growing up?
He had odd jobs. He sold real estate. He worked at factories sometimes, and sometimes he was just trying to start his own business and things like that. He was kind of like my mother and father were divorced since I was like 5 years old.
That must have been hard.
It's just what it was,
Yeah, I
figured
guess
it
you
out.
didn't know any different.
I had a relationship with my dad, and my mom, and that was normal for me because it happened when I was 5, so I got used to it. I knew that wasn't the way it's supposed to be, but that's the way it was.
So around 21, you start playing with Papa John Creech. How did that relationship start?
Papa John Creech was walking down the street on Adams Boulevard in LA, right between Crenshaw and La Brea. And him and his producer and his arranger were on their way to the Jet Set Cafe to get some food, the soul food restaurant called the Jet Set Cafe right there.
Okay.
And they heard us rehearsing in this little storefront studio, and went in and heard us and hired us.
That's why you got to turn your amps nice and loud when you're rehearsing,
That's all we knew back then was loud.
Did you want to play blues and, sort of traditional American roots music, or did you think you were going to be more an R&B and rock and roll artist?
I really didn't know. I've been eclectic in a sense since growing up. In that, like, my musical tastes were always kind of eclectic. My uncle who taught me guitar was kind of like a finger picker folk guy.
Okay.
And the kind of records I was around were like, Johnny Mathis and Nat King Cole and
Right.
Jazzy kind of like pop old school records. And then I started playing calypso in a steel band. And So I always kind of had oddball tastes, and I played, in the band at school. So we played classical at school. I played the French horn.
Yeah.
So I was always, it was a mix of whatever was going on. Then the Beatles came in 64, and that
Yeah.
really just messed everything up. Now we're really confused. So, it was like, and radio was different back then. Radio stations played everything. You heard everything on the top 40. You heard country, pop, R&B, whatever was hot and selling. You heard the best of what people were digging. So we all had like a different kind of like a more rounded. I mean, we'd be playing Aretha Franklin, and we were playing like Cream too,
Yeah.
in our bands. So we didn't care.
What's amazing is that there's certain guys from that era bridging sort of early rock and roll and soul music, blues, folk. A guy like Taj Mahal, who you've teamed up with multiple times,
Yes.
he puts out a record 1968, and you guys are playing one of those songs on that Taj Mo record, Diving Duck Blues now, right? And
Yeah.
it still feels like it was just created yesterday,
Oh yeah. Taj Mahal, man, he's the ultimate, like, genre jumper,
Yeah.
jumping around, all this rootsy kind of thing. He jumps from like between blues, because his roots are blues and Caribbean music.
Mm-hmm.
Because his mother was from one of his parents, I forget which one. One of his parents is from St. Kitts, and the other one's from the Carolinas.
Mm.
So he's got this blues, church, reggae culture going around him. So he's a whole other different thing.
I love when he puts like 3 tubas in some of his recordings. Like he just has this like New Orleans backbeat, no bass, no drums, just like this deep tuba bass
Oh, man,
behind him.
Like I said, he's the ultimate. He just goes out and he just you feel something, he'll just do it. Let's just do that. And Howard Johnson, the tuba ensemble, that was with him during that time. And yeah, I love Taj. Taj Mahal was a great mind opener for me, coming up. Opened my mind to, like, especially with the blues, that the blues was much more than just Bobby Blue Bland and B.B. King.
Right.
There's a whole lot to it.
What's cool about this collaboration that you guys did is that a song like Diving Duck Blues, I think that might even be a traditional, right? I mean, that's like goes back to the 20s, maybe. That song has over 11 million streams, right? That's like a hit in today's parlance on online listening. So it's like that music can kind of keep coming around as the sound of our culture, the sound of our American energy. It's like there's something about it that like people want, and it's this kind of blues where you're repeating the same stanza 3 times in a row, right? And then you're going from the hook. It's almost like a haiku. Like this, the simplicity of it is so powerful. If the river was whiskey and I was a diving duck, if the river was whiskey and I was a diving duck, if the river was whiskey and I was a diving duck, I'd dive upon the bottom and baby, I'd never come up. Now, it takes a lot of restraint and a lot of like self-control to not like, oh, let's switch it up and just write different lyrics. It's like, no, it's going to be the same thing 3 times in a row until you get that hook. And it's so satisfying when it gets there. That's what's so awesome about it.
What's great about it is it's a 2-tiered verse. You say the verse twice, and then the third line is the hook. The second line is the, so it's constantly it's this mini version of, like, verse chorus, and like, and the blues is relevant because all of us came from the blues. Rock, pop, country, so when you, if you're listening to popular music and you hear the origins, be it blues, country, folk, anything back there, it resonates in you, and you don't know why. It's because the whole thing we're doing is built on that.
When you when you team up with a group like Old Crow Medicine Show on that really fun track, Medicine Man, you can see how white artists in the South have been playing that in string band music for 100 years, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those early bluegrass and mountain music from Virginia, Tennessee,
Mhm.
it's just white blues, right? Twisted in a
Oh, it
different
is.
way.
And now, like, and you see, like, it's like a blues is people want to want to like claim make claim to things. People like are kind of territorial, in their taste in music,
Right.
and the rappers come out, and it's all black for a while. Then up comes, Eminem. Wait a minute.
Right.
But that's what happened. You start doing the blues, and up comes Mike Bloomfield and Johnny Lang and these guys, Jimmy Vaughn and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and along
Yeah.
with comes, because they love Albert King and they love B.B. King and they love, that old blues stuff, because it's real. It doesn't have a color. It's just real stuff. The way Ray Charles loved country music, and he did that whole country thing back in the 50s. It's real stuff. I think real always wins.
I remember my dad's record collection was in the side closet in my room back in Chicago. And one of the albums that was always at the front, which I always looked at, was the King of the Delta Blues, Robert Johnson collection.
Wow.
And that sort of haunting, ghostly, high sound that he got with his voice and his guitar, like they were kind of like weaving together down this dark road. When did you start playing and listening to Robert Johnson?
I started listening to Robert Johnson when I got hired for a play. I was playing electric blues primarily.
Mm-hmm.
91, 92, around in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call because not in LA. In LA, as you know, I don't know, back in the 90s, the blues in the pop world, blues was kind of like a curse.
Mm.
I wanted to get gigs. I wanted to be on the Janet Jackson gig or the Madonna gig,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was way down on the list of the line. So if you played the blues, that was for sure you weren't going to get any of those gigs. Like you had to know how to play pop styles and things to do that.
Yeah.
Which I knew how to do, but I was still way down on the list. There's guys that could do that better. And so the blues in LA was kind of like almost like a curse. And so guitar players weren't playing the old Delta stuff, they weren't playing it, and I started doing it, and I got gigs in theater. So I learned playing about Robert Johnson by messing around with the theater community, because they were dealing all this Ma Rainey stuff, and a lot of old things, 20s and things. Blues and old music would collide into those areas, so they needed someone to play it live on stage. So I became a guy who could do that, play the blues live on stage, the old style finger pick and slide and stuff like that, and show up on time, and know my stuff. And that was
Is that
it.
how?
So I came in by necessity, but the precursor to that was I was studying the blues. I was just into the blues. But when I got to hear Robert Johnson, now I'm in a master class,
Right.
Listening to Robert, Big Bill Brunsby, and starting to listen to the Plantation records with Muddy Waters, and starting to get into Blind Boy Fuller and Reverend Gary Davis and all that stuff. Now you're in it. You're really in it, because that's where all those other guys, B.B. King and Lupetin, they came from Mississippi. They came from down those places, and those are the people that they listening to. It's like listening to an Eric Clapton record and going, okay, God, that's good. But when you hear a B.B. King record or one of those Albert King records, you go, oh, well, I better listen to that, because that's where Eric Clapton got it from.
Right.
So now you go back down to the Delta. So now you don't want to listen to the other guys, because the B.B. King, that's where he got it from. you know. So you're going back down the horse and down the road, and you're finding the source of what you're hearing. Same way you said, like how Diamond Duck Blues, all of a sudden that just cuts through.
Mm.
You know, it just cuts through because that's where all the stuff came from that we call modern day, modern blues, or Chicago blues, or St. Louis blues.
How did Scorsese find out about you?
I think Scorsese, I don't know how he found out about me, but I think he wanted to do this thing on the blues, and he called some people to rally up the troops, and I was in the mix. So I got to participate in that. Steve Jordan was a musical director on that
Oh,
thing.
cool.
So I know Steve Jordan, and he called me to do that. And I actually recommend, so I found, I had been dealing with Larry Johnson, the guy that sung Angels, something. He did slow modern blues. Larry Johnson, no one really knew him. Remember that guy? Yeah.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
He's in the lightning in the bottle. He passed now, but I recommend him for the show, and Steve actually hired him to go and to do it. That was proud because he was Larry Johnson studied with Reverend Gary Davis, an African American gentleman, older guy.
Yeah.
He was part of they call them lead boys, guitar player lead boys. They would lead him around and get guitar lessons from him.
I talked to David Bromberg on this podcast, and he told me this story when he was like in college in New York in like the 70s. He found like Reverend Gary Davis just like living in a shack in the Bronx. And he basically gave him like lessons for $5.
Yeah.
And then he just started kind of bringing him to gigs as his like assistant, basically. It's like, he's like living in this like field in the Bronx. He's like, yeah, if you could help me out, I'll give you some lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. Bromberg. I met Bromberg in the 70s.
I know he's been around, man.
I met him, man. He says, yeah, call me, man. I'm like, okay, give me a number. He said, I'm in the book. You call New York. Like people in New York, like in LA, people have private numbers. No, I'm not in the book. But in New York, people were in the book.
Yeah.
You could call the operator in New York and go like, I like the number of David Bromberg, and you could call him and he'd pick up the phone and you'd be talking to David Bromberg.
That record that came out in '94, Martin Scorsese Presents, Keb Mo, there's that song Perpetual Blues Machine, which I love, about falling in love with someone who's going to like continuously drag you into these tough situations that are just going to keep the songs flowing, whether you want them or not.
Perpetual Blues Machine. That was inspired by where I started that song. I started writing that song was at the Shakey's Pizza on San Vicente and Fairfax.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, Shakey's Pizza. I was in there at a birthday party. I went to the birthday party, taking my older son. He's 34 now, but he was like a little kid. Shakey's Pizza birthday. And I went in there, and there's all women, and I'm in there because I was a split up father, split up from my wife, and so I have my turn to take him to the birthday party. And I go in there and all the women are in there and I'm going, this is like a perpetual blues machine in here.
Who knew that Shakey's birthday parties could inspire classic blues tunes?
Yeah, I don't know why this is kind of a Shakey's Pizza. That's an LA thing. They don't have Shakey's all over. Shakey's.
I don't think so.
But
that song reminds me of something that I feel like if Robert Johnson had grown up and like maybe had a more modern sound, this is something that he would have created. It's like based in that sort of fingerpick rustic style, and then it's elevated into something a little edgier and a little more modern.
Funny you say about that, because that, in a sense, when I listen to all those guys, modern blues, like more like the Chicago and the Delta guys, and I could have went on a big study and tried to become like a blues scholar, and know all the styles. But I figured if I was back there in the 40s or the 30s or the 50s or somewhere like that, I would be trying to find my own style. I wouldn't be trying to copy those guys. You know,
Right.
I'll be trying to go like, I'm gonna find my style of the blues.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of like picture myself as one of those guys, and I'd grab a few licks from this guy and that guy, the other kind of like things, and then I proceeded to like just sit down and just play and blend everything that I had learned before. You know, was like looking at the Mickey Baker book, you know, and you know, and the things that I had learned from guitar lessons and stuff, and start like combining things, you know, and then eking out a style for myself very quickly. You know, and this time I'm like, you know, I'm over the hill in terms of getting a record deal. So I start, you know, I'm like, I got to work fast here, create an identity going.
Well, when you've won, 5 Grammy awards and countless Blues Association awards, people start to view you as sort of the essence of what modern blues is. And there's kind of a responsibility there, especially when you're portraying these historical figures on screen, because you've done acting work, you've portrayed Howlin' Wolf on that Sun Records movie. You did that John Sayles movie, Honey Dripper, where you played that sort of street musician.
Into that stuff now, man.
But like, people start looking at you as what blues is. Like, do you think like that's a lot of pressure, or like, do you embrace it?
No, that's people like defining you and giving you a, you know, kind of putting you in a box.
Right.
And like, I'll accept that. I mean, I know people will put you in a box, and that's okay. That's just the nature of people. What's Keb Mo? Oh, he plays the blues. You know, okay, I do. You know, but I'm gonna play something else too. And then they're gonna go like, but you're supposed to be playing the blues. I know, but I'm gonna play this. No, I'm gonna do this now.
Well, especially on this new record. I mean, a lot of it is very, I think, pop. It's just straight kind of fun, upbeat music that could be on the radio.
Yeah.
In a variety of different genres. I do dig that song "Good Strong Woman" you did with Darius Rucker. Now you have kind of a history of creating songs hinting that maybe there should be a woman in charge, like you did with Roseanne Cash. Like maybe us guys have screwed things up. Can we pass the baton to the ladies? Which again is probably not very typical of blues styles, which, to be real, kind of have a history of misogyny and
Oh yeah.
So you're pretty forward thinking in that.
In that way, until I'm satisfied. That stuff like that. You know?
Yeah. I'm a man.
Turn 21. Yeah. When I line, I shoot, never miss. Stuff like that. It's very misogynistic. It's very macho. But in the blues, you can get away with that. In the blues, you can get away with like, my woman hurt me, and and now she's, what I mean? You can have revenge. But in pop music, the women do that. Taylor Swift has made a,
yeah,
you know what I mean? She
10-minute song on SNL about
she go right
being
in
wronged by Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. They do that. Even this one, what's this new one, Olivia Rodrigo or something,
Yeah.
She's done that too. They do that. Gloria Gaynor again, like, I will survive. First I was alone, I was petrified.
Right.
You do anymore. Well, go on, walk out that door, So that's the one thing. But if you try to do that in R&B or hip hop, you got to beg. You got to kind of, well, you can do it in rap. You can like call women out of their name, and you can be pimp. I'm a pimp, and pimps and hoes and stuff. That falls back into like the blues category too. Like it's like, the R&B singers have to be smooth. These ones I grew up with, you have to be romantic. You got to be, But the women can go like, can call your names, and which is fair.
Yeah, we've earned it. But the Good Strong Woman track, you kind of turn it around, saying, maybe it's gonna work out this time. Maybe I got someone who has my back, who's going to be there for me. Because life can be hard, and she's going to make it better, and that's kind of what falling in love is all about. This person who's going to right your ship when it's sinking.
Yes, it's like the problems that come up in your life, there's two people that got their eye on it.
Yeah.
Both. It's like having like when you write a song, I like co-writing, because there's two people that have their eye on it. Like, I don't know about that line right there. Let's dig in a little deeper, And when I work with Chuck Lorre on this show, Be Positive, and I talk with him, I go have talks with him, and he says, things get better. The more people have their eye on it, that know what they're doing, the better a product gets,
Right.
Yeah.
But if we go back to that Put a Woman in Charge track you did with Roseanne Cash off the Oklahoma record, again, it's very positive and uplifting, but you're hinting at what could happen if we don't put this woman in charge, right? We're on the brink of disaster. She's got the power to change the rules. And if we keep following these rules, it's going to be the end,
And she is not the woman. Put a woman in charge. To me, put a woman in charge, because women are smarter than us, but they're falling prey and victim to the same things that men are falling prey to, given the chance, And so put a woman in charge is more about not the woman, but it's part. Let's get a new perspective. Let's see what the women have to say.
Right.
Not like in charge because they can do the same thing men can do. But let's listen to each other. Is the message I was really trying to portray. Let's try that. And that song didn't go. I played women like it, but it kind of faded into the distance, because it's still kind of like a strange concept. Also, gender revolution going on today now. What's a woman? The feminine lines of femininity and sexuality and gender are so blurred now.
How do those T-shirts sell in the South when you're touring?
Yeah, they're good. Well, the T-shirt is the T-shirt was a kind of thing. The T-shirt was kind of like a thing, but I love that song. I love performing that song. I think it's a really cool song, and I like to watch the men if I would perform it, kind of fold their arms, start sitting there going,
squirm in their seats a little bit.
Put a woman in charge.
Yeah, we have my band Dust Bowl Revival has this song about gun control and the shooting that happened in Parkland, Florida, and most places obviously embrace the message that we should vote people into office who are actually going to change this horrible precedent, except that every now and again you'll play a show when we go into this chorus basically saying, like, get rid of you, all the people who are standing in the way of progress. They don't really clap along as much. They start crossing their arms, like you said. This last tour, I felt a little of that energy in Columbus, Ohio.
One time, I remember I had this record I called Peace Back by Popular Demand. And I was on the Jersey Shore.
Okay.
And I did a cover of For What It's Worth.
Okay.
And I busted in, I swear I busted in the something happened in here.
Yeah.
Is an exact color. I swear I felt the attitude in the audience change. I felt the room, the temperature dropped 5 degrees.
Shut up and sing, Keb.
Yeah.
Stop pushing your agenda of peace, love, and understanding.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting when you hit those sore spots, and I like to hit sore spots. I got well, one sore spot that really hit was really good. Even my band some members of my band couldn't take it when I said the line of Don't wait for Jesus. He ain't coming back no more.
Which song is that off of?
Stand up and be strong.
Okay.
Second verse goes, get up, everybody, get off your ass. We got to do something. We got to do it fast because the people are hungry and the fuel is low. Don't wait for Jesus. He ain't coming back no more. I mean, my family just went up. They were aghast. I mean, what do you mean Jesus not coming back? I was like, well, did you listen to the rest of the song? We're like, it's a metaphor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Jesus coming back. you know. I guess I said the name of Jesus in vain or something. I got scared.
Do you know the songwriter Hayes Carl? You ever heard of him?
Oh yeah. When I find Jesus, I'm kicking his
ass. Yeah. His episode just came out today, actually, and I had never heard that song, and
I love that song.
Threw me for a loop because I'm like, man, he's got that country voice and all the the pedal steel, and you're like, man, I don't think people in the Bible Belt are gonna love the idea of getting into a street brawl with Jesus. But I think he's a historical figure. Like,
that's so over the top.
Fair game.
If I ever find Jesus, I'm kicking his ass.
I love that he wrote that when he was like working the bar at Chili's. It's like, hey man,
that's just fun. To me, that's just like good old fun,
When you performed at the White House for Barack and Michelle, did you feel like progress was actually happening in this country? Like, what was it like being there?
What was like being there was like, what was great about being there was being there.
Yeah.
It's like, I always, when Barack started running for president, I was like, I didn't think he could pull it off, And it was first presented to me by an actress named Alfre Woodard, Alfre Woodard, the actress,
Okay.
I go somewhere. She goes, hey, Kevin, she says, we're starting to get Kevin, we're gonna get behind Barack Obama. He's gonna run for president, and we behind him, and we're gonna get this done. I was like, oh, Alfre, you sure?
Right.
This country's still pretty white. You know what I mean? And she was like, and I think when I looked in her eyes and she was telling me that this was going to happen, I'm pretty sure she made it happen.
Wow.
She was like, the way she she's like, we're going to get Barack Obama in the White House. And I was going like, I was the bitch. You know what I mean? Right. She was in it, man. And then I watched it go and I watched the whole thing happen. I was like, oh, this is about, this might go down, And so to me, I felt there was going to be a backlash after his term was up or with him getting in. There would be a backlash because that's what happens with all presidents. There's a backlash. Yeah. After, the next president is usually the opposite party because the president cannot be liked by everyone.
A total crazy person. Yeah, go on.
But the backlash from Barack Obama was, who.
It was swift and dark.
I mean, that's the backlash, and that's what I was afraid of when he was elected. Of the backlash.
When you go to the White House, do they put you through like an FBI background check? Like, do Secret Service people come to your house? Like, how does that whole process work?
Well, I don't know. They probably check you out. They probably check you out more than you know. But yeah. But I mean, it was great being in the White House during that administration and the feeling that it was in, and the hopefulness, about it, being the first, African American, couple, president and first lady in the White House. Right. It was great being in there, bearing witness to that, the feeling of hope and all the kids that got to go there. Like I did some things with Michelle Obama where she'd bring all these kids. She'd bring kids from Chicago and kids from all kind of underprivileged, neighborhoods and droves, of all races, and she was really, really working to get those kids, let them see this, she wanted all of them to see, you know, this administration in the White House, and the progress about that presidency was the greatest thing that happened was that he got elected. Like my son, it was like 3 or 4 years old, during that three. And the first president he saw get elected was Barack Obama.
It's pretty good.
You can't undo that. You know what I mean? Now that's possible for him. So a lot of little kids of different races saw Obama get elected. And so now you can't undo that.
Yeah.
Now they can see that that's possible. And what happens is that in a way, it opens up society a little bit more. Society becomes a little less tolerant of bigotry and and unfairness and all kind of things. And so it's a good thing. And being in that White House for me was very special. I took my son, my wife, and we went. My son got to meet Obama. He was like 5 years old. There he is shaking the president.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was more intimidating, performing at the White House or performing on the West Wing for Aaron Sorkin?
Oh, at the White House. Because I was actually sitting next to Aaron Sorkin. And the thing I was there, like he was at Rome back, and but the most intimidating thing in performing was when Michelle came in.
Right.
She has got an awesome presence.
I wish she would run.
You talking about a good, strong woman who got your back? That's what I'm talking about right there.
Yeah.
There's no, just her presence makes you very out of that. I actually I've never shaken on. My hand actually kind of started shaking. When the actual performance when she came in, I was like, holy, because every great man is a good woman, and Michelle Obama is at least as awesome as Barack Obama. Maybe
Do you ever
more.
have you ever gotten starstruck seeing a musician that you really admire?
The only time I ever got really starstruck, was not a musician. It was, believe it or not, I just Regina King. She walked up to me and so I was in Atlanta, and we were at an event she was in. She walked up and she said, "Hey, Keb Mo." I lost my mind.
She's pretty cool.
It's like,
right.
It's like some of the actors. I really respect great acting.
Yeah.
You'll do great things, because that's the thing. I think musicians, I've met a lot of musicians, but meeting actors, because they play music without an instrument. They're just them. They're embodying embodying these characters and these roles and things. I think it's just like incredible. So, I like meeting Meryl Streep or meeting running into Liscombe. I'm getting bad with names now. The guy from Third Rock from the Sun.
Lithgow.
Lithgow.
John Lithgow.
John Lithgow. Running into him, talking with him, and I'm pretty good friends with man. I think I'm going to start taking ginkgo or something, man. Dumber and Dumber.
Jim Carrey.
No, the other guy. Yeah.
Jeff Daniels.
Yeah. I was going to call him John. Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
He's like a friend of mine. He's awesome. What an awesome actor. I mean, these are like iconic. So actors, I get freaked out by actors.
Well, he's a great musician too.
Yeah, he is. Great songwriter. Great. So it's like so starstruck. I think probably the first time I was starstruck by a musician was probably running into Tony Bennett. And then one night I ran into Charles Wright of the Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band.
Oh yeah. What's the one hit we just were talking about that in the car?
Express Yourself.
Yeah, Express Yourself.
But they had a lot of some local hits too, local LA hits and things like that. One called Hole in the Wall, and they were a whole thing. But yeah.
When you've been around as long as you have, you were writing songs and doing A&R work for close to 15 years before you actually put your first self-titled record out in 94. How do you remember lyrics and songs and melodies that go back a generation of time? Do you have sort of
I
a
have
master
bad,
list of songs?
I've always had really bad memory, even when I was a kid. Because I mean, I couldn't hold on to things, but I can hold on to things that are truthful, that really strike me. Like, the words that when I fall in love, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they just won't fall out of my head. When I fall in love, it will be forever, or I'll never fall. I mean, from kids, certain songs, that if it's a really true resonating kind of thing, like my own songs that I write are easy to remember. But remembering someone else's song is really difficult for me.
Sometimes I see songs of yours. I see a song like The Itch as almost like a mini movie, right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
you just press play and you go into this dark club and you see this guy with his guitar, and it has almost kind of this Latin groove, and you're talking about, forget about the money, the lawyers, and the pain. Forget about the money, the lawyers, and the pain. You're going to do that same damn thing all over again. It's like this endless cycle of bad habit that we can't get out of. Falling in love, falling out of love, losing love.
That powerful. That's how powerful love is. We listen
It's
to
the
love
itch.
song. Yeah, it's the itch. Fever, the vapors.
Where did that song come from?
Well, I've been divorced twice, and so, and I got my clock cleaned, and a couple of times, with divorce, and but it's like you go in and you just kind of go, you still can't resist it. There's a chemical.
Yeah.
It's like falling in love is really like a temporary insanity.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's the same chemical as being insane. You know, it's the urge that keeps the population going. It's the natural
Yeah.
urge. And so when you forget about the lawyers, the money, and the pain, because you do, and that's
When
where it
you
gets
first,
started. You know, and then the last verse, like you know, about Jesus again. I go on about Jesus. You know, Saint Peter at the gate, like if I would go to heaven, would that be the end? Or will I fall for some sweet little angel and do the same thing all over again? And I grab a little BB King, like Sweet Little Angel, you know.
I feel like the song on the new record that is related to the itch in some way is Dressed in Blue. Feels like an old noir, like you're dropped into this sort of dark bar and you're
There's cigarettes burning
venting.
in that song. There's cigarettes and scotch being drank,
It's like something real bad just happened and you're trying to wrap your head around it.
You told me you loved me. I thought you was for real, but the fact is you didn't really want me. Yeah, I don't know. I know I can hear those lyrics. I know that song really rings really, really right. Because it's in the spirit of the 50s and the 60s blues, like a Bobby Lupetin kind of song.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a minor key thrill is gone. It's like just kind of uncomfortable. Everything has gotten real nasty.
Yeah. You talk about her like, like the fact is you told me about your old boyfriend and you broke it off because you wanted to be free. But the fact is he really didn't want you.
Yeah.
Now you settling for me. Get in there dirty.
All right, let's say that you play a show that can have a full bill of artists, let's say 5 artists with you. It could be any 5 artists throughout history, dead or alive. Who would that bill include, and where would you perform if you could perform anywhere in the world?
Do I have to perform with them?
You could just
Do I have to be on the
MC
show?
maybe.
Do I have to be on the show?
Yeah, you should play a few songs.
I could be.
This is a fantasy. You can do whatever you want.
Let's say I can be just for me. I could be on it. Okay.
Okay.
It would be Gladys Knight,
Okay.
Johnny Guitar Watson,
All right.
Shirley Caesar,
Who's that?
gospel singer.
Okay.
Shirley Caesar, Bob Marley,
Okay.
and Taj Mahal.
I go see that tour.
You know?
Most people, when I ask a question like this, they have to think about it for 10 minutes. You like had those artists like queued up, like you've been thinking about this before, maybe.
Well, I know who I there's certain artists I heard in high regard, like Johnny Guitar Watson had a 50s blues career and a 70s blues career.
Mm.
You know, both of them very valid. You know, he went to the straight blues and he came out with another kind of an R&B blues and was successful twice. And he was a great musician, great piano player, great voice, and just fantastic. And I know in terms of gospel, no one can follow Shirley Caesar.
Mm.
She is the epitome of the flat-foot gospel singing, just not a whole bunch of runs and stuff, just in your face, just just God-fearing gospel preaching woman, you know?
Yeah.
And Bob Marley was the best concert I've ever been to in my life.
Where'd you see him?
I saw him at UCLA at Pauley Pavilion.
Wow.
And in like 1980. I mean, God, it was, ooh, God damn, you know, it's just great. The groove in that place and the spiritual vibration that was in the room and the audience that was there that came to see him was just, the whole thing was just so perfect. Taj Mahal, when Taj Mahal is on and like, you know, like 60s Taj Mahal with Jesse Owen Davis and that old band he had in the, you know, back then with those guys. And
well, Statesboro Blues.
Like so, anyway, just this every incarnation of Taj Mahal that, you know, like the tubas and the whole, the, you know, drum, just all that stuff, you know. And did I say, who was that? Did I say Aretha? No, I don't think I said Aretha.
You can add Aretha as the special guest, you know, additional. Why not?
Gladys Knight, you know. Yeah, I don't know, just but those are all artists that ring with me when I think about them. Like I think, oh wow, that's just those are, you know, real new folks. And there's more and more. There's many more. Like there's like people like Charlie Wilson, and stuff like that. The Beatles, I guess, would be on the show.
Great.
You have to have the Beatles.
That'll be, you know, the encore.
Yeah, bring the Beatles out. That's just like, what? The Beatles?
They're back together finally.
But the Beatles, not the Beatles with shitty sound and back in the days, because they never got to perform in a place with a really great sound system. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, the Beatles with full production. You know?
I know that is kind of a sad thing if you think about it. Like they were playing Shea Stadium in New York with like 2 PA speakers and like their amps, right?
They had two sure sound vocal master PAs. They didn't have things back then like that. They didn't have that stuff.
What I never understand about the Beatlemania thing is that all these young girls are so excited to see them. If you were that excited to hear them in person, wouldn't you not scream nonstop over the music?
Oh man, those were first 14-year-old girls, and now you're full of I mean, like hitting puberty, and four, like cute little British boys, playing. They
Yeah,
were losing they were losing it, man. And they had long hair. What we could perceive as long hair back then was
right.
long hair. Nobody had seen that. And the Nehru jackets, they lost their mind, you know. And the music was good too, you know. You got 21-year-old Paul McCartney, super talented, super good looking up there, like smiling,
Right.
with it, those girls, man, those girls, I saw it, man, when I was there, man. We in there, we were, everybody's going like, holy mo, you thought they yelled for Elvis. Man, they were like going, I was like, oh my God, this is different. This is really different. And now looking back at the music, when you look at the music, when I listen to the Beatles station on XM, man, I mean, the body of work they left behind is just like ridiculous,
Endless.
you know?
I know my favorite Beatles songs are often like the B and C level songs that get forgotten, Fixing a Hole. I love that song,
Yeah. They were performing at such a high level, and you throw like, George Martin in there and the records that they were making and the innovation and that stuff, all that energy. And I think it was just so many boxes were checked with the
Right.
Beatles. It was just crazy.
Well, they had that video recently of Ringo and his drum patterns and his groove, like why it works so well. This guy broke it down and it kind of went viral. And Ringo basically is like, whenever people say, play less, I play even less,
Yes.
like it's just like it's just like right into the slot of the groove. And
There's
that's
so
it.
many ways to play an eighth note hi-hat pattern, you know, where you put the emphasis on like that basic
Right.
it's like so many ways you accentuate that thing, simple shuffles and stuff. And I'm always trying to explain it to musicians, explain it to the band, and like, it's just this. No, it's not just that. Like, it's different every time. It's
Well,
so
I have to, I can't end this conversation without thanking you for uh, lending your guitar to our Dust Bowl revival track, Honey, I Love You, which is, I think, one of my all time favorite recordings. And the funny thing is, when you sent that rhythm part, at first we were totally confused. We were like, wait, is he playing on a different song? Because we had never, ever had this sort of almost tropical Caribbean bounce behind it. It was like a soul song. All of a
yeah.
sudden, it had this like beach sunshine vibe. And at first we were like, I think this is not going to work. Like maybe we should just like cut it out and just do a couple of his licks in there. And then I started listening to it the next day and being like, oh, now I can't hear the song without it. Like it doesn't work without Keb's guitar. It's like this perfect, tasty little groove that just like kind of threads the whole thing together.
I do that sometimes. Like people send me stuff, and I mean a couple of times, like like I remember I said this artist will remain nameless. I sweated over this guitar part, and it was a lead part. It was what you would expect from me. You know what I mean? And I was like, and then they didn't use it, and I was like, I heard the record, like, wonder what happened. I thought I nailed it, but maybe I didn't. And they put the other part on them, just I think it was a matter of like, they were the guitar player in the band. But like, yeah, I'll put something on that I think works. And that was that I remember that was a stretch to do that rhythm part rather than doing something that you could go feature. Because basically rhythm guitar is where the money is.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? When I say the money, it's like the rhythm guitar, like like Chuck Berry. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? The rhythm guitar parts, are at least as important as the lead parts. I mean, more because they set the whole thing. And you can take a guitar, any rhythm, the drums, and you can really solidify or bend something in a way that's, make it a little more interesting, a little more body in it or something.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't put a lot of credence in rhythm guitar,
Mm-hmm.
in rhythm in general. It's more like about, I don't know, some loosey goosey, but rhythm guitar, man, that's my thing.
No, it was brilliant.
Thank you.
When you play around the world now in your 70s,
Yeah.
do
Hey man,
you
let me pause you for a second. I gotta go
okay.
pee.
Okay. I'm almost done, I promise.
Don't go away.
Okay.
This is my this is my third interview of the day,
Oh wow.
and I forgot to take a bath. I didn't take a break.
You're a busy man. Your record doesn't even come out for a month.
I'm gonna start this. Okay. All right, we're rolling again.
All right. A couple more questions, then I'm done. I promise.
This is good.
Do you-
Hey man, I gotta apologize, man. When I started the interview, I had the paper here, and they had told me what the interview was, and I didn't know you were from the Dust Revival, because that's Jeff. Jeff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, I remember that was really like one of those moments. I remember one time I had another artist. They sent me a track, and they asked me to play the guitar, and I put a Fender Rhodes on it.
Yeah.
I kind of like I don't know, man.
Sometimes that's what it needs.
Yeah. Because when I call somebody to play, I ask for something I need. You know what I mean? I call them not because of their celebrity or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
I treat every guest like a session person,
Yeah.
like Roseanne Cash. That's
Yeah.
you know, that's a call. All right, we'll go ahead with your ask me.
When you first started playing in your 20s, did you think that you'd be still touring the world? Did you think you'd still be touring the world and be this busy when you were in your 70s?
I thought I'd be done by 30. I thought that I would have just, because remember the whole saying back in the 60s, don't trust anybody over 30.
Uh-huh.
30 was a place where you became an old person.
Right.
30 was old. 30 is nothing now. Like you're just,
Yeah.
back then, don't trust anybody over 30 was because 30-year-olds were already indoctrinated into the system. They were already wearing a tie and
Uh-huh.
and cut their hair, and they're already square and had sold out, you know? And so I figured if I hadn't made it by 30, I still got time to go in and get a job and save my life, and, so I don't end up a failure in life.
What job would you be working, you think?
I don't know what job I would work at. If I started out in my 20s, I would have, if I had went the straight and narrow, I would have been an architect.
Hmm.
But because I just veered off and did music, I stopped my architectural, study, and I went off to be a musician. I just went off because people just called me. I just really stopped because they said, let's go play. Okay, let's go play. I just forgot about school.
Yeah. Music is intoxicating, man. It's like you can't stop
So
it
I
once it
figured
starts rolling within you.
I figured if I hadn't made it by 30, that pretty much it was over. And 30 came and went, 40 came and went, and I was still in it. Just finally, at about 39, I think I said, fuck it. you know, I'm staying in for the long haul. You know, that's when things turned around because I kind of always had one foot in music and the other foot out the door.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so and that's how I sounded musically. I sounded like I had one foot out the door, but I didn't really realize that. So when I put both foot in it,
Right.
you know, there was like an attitude change. You know, now I had to make it work. And then that's when things got much better in the next 2 years. And it led into like, getting the record deal on Sony. You know, it was like I changed my attitude and things just went. So the thing about 30 was a fallacy, like that after 30, you're done. You know, when any age, when you change, when you wake up, that's your age when you can go.
Yeah.
And I'm in my late 30s. You know?
Of all the places you've played in the world, is there a particular show that is most memorable or sticks out in your mind as being the most special for you?
No, because I'm never satisfied with a show. I mean, like there's some shows that have showed up online, like, oh, that was good or that was okay. But I'm so busy picking myself apart, I can't even I don't know that I've ever had a good show. You know, I think
There's
I've had
still time,
shows
Keb.
like get another show, but I don't know that I've ever had a great show.
Are you a perfectionist?
Maybe.
That's got to be painful, though.
Well, I just keep going for it, man. It's not so much perfection. It's like I know I'm an okay guitarist. I'm an okay singer. You know, I can write a song or two, and all those together make up like when you mush them all together.
Uh-huh.
You know, you got Keb Mo. You know, but any one of them on their own can't make it. You know, but Keb Mo, what I am is like I'm a songwriter. I'm a guitarist. I'm a singer. I'm a producer, and and all those things. And when I put it all together, it's enough. I can
Right.
produce. I'm not. When I say a producer, I'm good at producing Keb Mo. If I produce somebody else, they probably hate me. And I produced a few records, but some of them turn out good. They always turn out good, but there's always at some point a rebellion.
Right.
You know, because if you try to make it, if you try to really push when you push them to go a little further, most time there's like, I mean, that's fine, man. Why you being such a, you know, it's okay. It's just, like, no, it's not okay.
Yeah. Well, you got a vision, man.
So I'm good at taking care of Keb Mo. You know, I don't think I could take care of U2. I mean, U2, they need another producer. They need somebody else,
Yeah.
But if I was good, like Rick Rubin's a great producer, you know,
Yeah.
knows how to do that. He's got something going. These guys are producers. Me, I'm an artist and I can produce a record, but is it the one you want? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Were you able to ever play or meet Bill Withers before he passed?
Oh yeah, I didn't play with him. He had stopped playing by the time I met him, but he was. I met him and hung out with him. We played at what's that place on Wilshire? It's on Wilshire and Las, Sabine, something like that.
Saban Theater, yeah.
Theater. And I called Bill. I said, "Man, we're coming." He said, "I'm coming down." For some reason, he just came down, and Bill Withers was in the dressing room.
Wow.
Talking with the band about it, and the band was just freaking out. They're going like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
He was having a ball, talking about all kinds of shit, just talking shit and holding court, And,
Yeah. If there's one songwriter
he
for
was
me
walking,
that,
and he was walking through the crowd. Nobody, because he's real unassuming,
yeah,
And he's a big, tall guy. He was just unassuming, walked right out, and just went, about his business.
there's just something about his writing, the simplicity, the directness, the soulfulness. Every time a song comes on, these songs are 40, 50 years old now.
Yeah.
They just seem like they're part of your life right now, right?
Yeah.
And you covered "Lean on Me" on this new record, and we can go out with that if you like. That song feels like the pick me up you need in every generation. It doesn't matter when it comes on.
And he's from West Virginia,
Yeah,
coal miner. That's the coal miner. You know what I mean? He's
yeah,
from the earth. He's from the, West Virginia, not Virginia, West Virginia, which is,
yeah.
and he's got that church thing, the soul thing, and he's really, and he told me, he said, man, all those songs. I said I did all that in a 7-year period.
Hmm.
From Ain't No Sunshine till, and all of that was in a 7-year period.
It's like the Beatles, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, how long am I doing this? I've been at like 25 just recording. I'm damn near 30 years, just being a recording artist, and I ain't done nothing like that.
There's still time.
Yeah, there is. There is.
Well, I'm really glad we could talk about your career and the new record. It's
You guys still
something we need, man.
Are you guys still gigging with the Dust Bowl?
Yeah, Dust Bowl just
Yeah.
did our first real long tour, and since the pandemic, just came back a couple of days ago.
We get to do some playing. Maybe I could, do that. I should pull up that session and that one more. Weird. I got it here.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
What's the name of that song?
Honey, I Love You.
Okay, I got it here. I'll keep everything.
Yeah, we just recorded some new tracks. We have some new members in the band. A lot of folks in the pandemic decided, they couldn't keep doing this. So we have a really cool new lineup. I think we're actually having the most fun we've had in a long time, to be real. New blood is good.
You the drummer?
I'm the singer, guitar player.
Oh yeah.
And there's this amazing black singer that joined the band, LaShawn Haley, who is just blowing people's minds, man. I mean, it is amazing to see people hear these songs in a new way, especially songs like Honey, I Love You, that they sound sweet, but they're pretty sexy and big once they get going,
If they want me to do another little guitar part or something, or a tambourine or something, just don't hesitate, just holler.
Hey man, we got a song we could get you on.
Is Jeff still managing you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell them, call me. I like that.
We were going to play in Nashville, but we had to cancel the show for COVID reasons back in August. But I'm sure we'll be back your way soon.
All right. Well, I better get going on. All right,
man.
I got a bunch of work to do. It's so great talking with you,
dude. Thanks so much for doing this. And if you could save the stuff and then send it to you want to send it to the publicist, or do you want to send it directly to me?
Give me your get a pencil here.
Just send it to dustbowlrevival@gmail.com. That's the easiest way.
Dustbowlrevival@gmail.com.
That's right.
All right.